we're doing a wrap up today of February and all the reading that I got done. Hello, I'm Shivani. This is the Curly Bookworm. I'm going to share with you all of the great books that I read because I did have a really good reading month. I actually ended up having one of those lucky months where I have not read a bad book this whole month. That happens pretty rarely, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Let's get started with this first book. I put this up in my book haul. This is Fantastic Mr. Fox by Roald Dahl. Roald Dahl is famous for writing a lot of children's books as well as adult books, but this is one of those children's books. So this follows the story of Mr. Fox, who's apparently a fantastic husband and a fantastic fox. So the protagonists in this book are obviously Fantastic Mr. Fox. There's three farmers who are really nasty and mean, whose names are Mr. Boggis, Mr. Bunce, and Mr. Bean. And this story is about how Fantastic Mr. Fox outwits or outfoxes or foxes. What's the word for it? It's a really fun read for children, although you have to keep in mind that it is written in the 70s and therefore it might have some random, like outdated concepts. Like, for example, Mrs. Fox does little or nothing in this whole book, which kind of annoyed me, but I keep telling myself he wrote it in the 70s, so calm down. The other thing is that why was Mr. Fox stealing in the first place, right? I don't know. Of course, I really like Roald Dahl, so I never want to say anything mean about him. Overall, I rate this like I rate most of Roald Dahl's books, which is within the 4 to 5 range, so like 4 stars for this one, because the writing is just so good, as always. The second book is this one. It's called We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Adichie. I love her stuff. Anybody who's seen any of my videos before know how crazily I fangirl over anything that has Chimamanda written on it. And I'm routinely seen doing really strange things like dissing her books. This one is obviously about what being a feminist means. It's also based on a rather old TED talk of hers. I'm going to link that below in the description box. You can check out the TED talk as well if you don't want to read the book. I actually think this is one of those things that you should give to anybody who doesn't understand feminism completely, which I think is almost everybody. Even the women who consider themselves feminists not necessarily understand what it means to be a feminist. No offense to anybody, but this will clarify a lot because her examples, her analogies, and her natural flow of thought is so articulate, like you can't not get it. So as usual, this is definitely a 5 on 5 for me. The next book on my list is this book called A Quart in Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. So this book is the second in the series of A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I read last month, and I read this one as soon as I finished the last one. The thing about Sarah J. Maas's books is that she just creates either people or worlds. What I realized was that in the previous series that I read, which is the Throne of Glass series, there were such strong characters, and I'm generally such a character-driven person versus just a world or plot-driven person in terms of the books I read. But in this series, she's just like killed it with the world. I mean, if you liked A Court of Thorns and Roses, you will absolutely love the second book, which is A Court of Mist and Fury. So I'm not going to spoil it for you. I'm going to tell you what the first book is about. It's a retelling of Beauty and the Beast, apparently, but it's a very loose retelling. It's about this mortal girl who walks in the land of fairies and everything that happens to her after that. I'm not going to say anything more than that. Just get onto that series. The world that she builds in book 2 is so worth it, even though book 1 is not half as good as book 2. Honestly, so good. I feel like Sarah J. Maas always does this. She makes her first or second book really kind of lame compared to the ones that follow, because I think the ideas just get wilder and wilder in her head. This was totally a 4 out of 5 for me. I'm kind of miserly while giving ratings, clearly, because if I loved it so much, why not a 5? But 5s are really books that kind of move me into feeling and thinking completely differently. So this is still a 4 out of 5 because it was, the world building in this book is, oh my god, seriously, so good. Go read it. The next book on my list is The Sun is Also a Star by Nicola Yoon. I have a full-blown, non-spoiler review, which I will link in the description box below. Feel free to watch that. But in short, this book was so amazing. It was a young adult book that talked about immigration, race, first love, and a whole bunch of other things. It follows the story of Natasha, who's Jamaican, and Daniel, who is Korean American, and their story as narrated in one day of their lives and everything that happens in that day. It is such an incredibly insightful book. It gives you perspective, it has so much research, it has random notes. It's a delightful read. I really, really suggest that you read it. Again, this book is something like a 4.5 out of 5 stars for me because it's just so good. Although it is in the young adult genre, which to me like is very hard to get my stars on that genre, because not because it's a bad genre, but just because for me thought-provoking books don't necessarily come from that genre, and this one, despite being a superbly young adult book, it's superbly thought-provoking, so go read it. The last book on my list is the creepiest book that I have ever read. It is called You by Caroline Kepnes. Oh, it is such a weird book. It's such heebie-jeebies. This book follows the story of a stalker who obviously stalks this girl. But the creepiest thing about this book is that it's actually told in first person, as in the stalker is actually narrating the story, and you get to sort of delve into his mind and how he thinks. So, disclaimer here just for a second, do not let any of your teenage children read this. If you have children that are teenage, or if you're like a young teen yourself, please don't read it. But it's just a disclaimer, you can go ahead and read it if you want. I'm nowhere close to being in my teens, but I found it extremely disturbing in so many ways because it's just like full of violent language. It's a stalker's head, so it's just really sexual and really sexually violent in that sense. It took me about 200 pages to get used to his language and to tell myself, you don't have to love him, it's fine, you can just read and be curious and, you know, just know what it feels like to be a stalker for 5 seconds. The other thing about this book is that every single character is unlikable. Even the girl who's getting stalked is just downright annoying, if not just deplorable. I don't know who I hate more, the stalker or the girl that's being stalked, or the people associated with these protagonists. There's also a lot of conversation about millennials and how young people are today and what social media is doing to society and shit like that. But it's part of the story and it's part of the narrative, it's part of the rhetoric inside the stalker's mind. So it's interesting in that way, but in general, keep in mind it's a fairly violent book, so don't pick it up if you don't think you can handle it. It's a bizarre book, but it's a great read. I rated it like a 3.5 on 5. So if you've read any of these books, let me know what you think in the comments below. And as usual, do your liking, subscribing, sharing this video and all of that jazz. I will see you next time. Bye! I'm going to be doing something called the newbie tag, which is what all new book channels do on BookTube.